And welcome to episode 3 of Devil Dash here on Dash Sports TV. This week we're going to be doing something a little bit different as, there's no football coming up for ASU. So we're going to take a look into the past, the present, and potentially the future of what could have been for ASU football. So to kick it off, we're going to be looking at the past. And, one of ASU's best players, probably their best player, is Jaden Daniels. He has a chance to go very high in the draft to leave college a year early. So that brought us to the question of, who do you think is the best quarterback in ASU history?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I mean, every team historically has quarterbacks that have done good and set records. Early on you're going to set record books, but it's kind of tough. You can't – how do you compare some of these new age guys, including all the new age stats that we have, compared to some guy who's back in 1950? I know it's tough, but, off the top of my head, one of the best quarterbacks that's come through the ASU program is Jake the Snake. Jake Plummer finished third in Heisman voting in 1996. There's been some pretty good ASU quarterbacks, but that is pretty tough to beat.
So, yeah, the Heisman, that's definitely, something that no one else on ASU has. But a name that I think a lot of people forget that personally as a fan has been my favorite of all time was Taylor Kelly. I grew up with season tickets to this guy. He took us to a Pac-12 championship, which we ended up getting murdered by Stanford, but we got to host one, which was, kind of throwing ASU's hat back into the ring of, we can be good again. But I got some stats for you. In 2013, the year we made it to the Pac-12 championship, Kelly threw for 3,600 yards, 28 touchdowns, ran for another 600 yards, and had another 9 rushing touchdowns. And then the following year in 2014, he ended up getting injured at the end of the year, but that was the year he had ASU all the way up to the number 7 seed in the country. That was the first year of the college football playoff rankings. And then we ended up losing to Oregon State, I believe in the third to last game of the season, one of those, wacky Pac-12 games that ends at, midnight or 12:30. And then we ended up playing U of A in a winner-take-all Pac-12 South game down in Tucson, where it was one of the best territorial cups ever, besides the 19-point comeback, of course. But one of the best territorial cups ever that Berkovici ended up playing because Taylor Kelly was hurt, that Arizona State ended up eventually losing. But it was one of the best 7 games of ASU history, I want to say, besides, they had their undefeated year back in the past, but of, recent history. And it means a lot to a program when, you've had a lot of bad years in a row. And when you have that year of, getting up to number 7, even if you do lose 2 of your last 3, it's that national recognition where ESPN wants to cover your games again. And,
right.
What do you think of Jaden Daniels, though? Do you think he has a shot to go down as one of the best? Obviously he's had 1 year and his stats are going to be deflated because of COVID. He's only going to play 2 instead of 3. But, what do you think about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of variables. COVID, him sitting out a season now. I don't know. He only has 1 year under his belt. You got to remember that. And then look at when you're comparing these quarterbacks, look at other quarterbacks in like the Pac-12, for instance. Like Keaton Slovis is a true freshman last year as well. He put up, I'm pretty sure he put up over like 600, 700 more yards than Jaden Daniels, a handful more touchdowns. And you got to compare it to that and just like, I don't know. Jaden Daniels could possibly be maybe a top 16, top 20 draft pick, but I don't know if he could touch Jake the Snake.
So something that's interesting, I think, about Jaden Daniels is he's going to be, whether it's Slovis, Howe, maybe tossing 1 or 2 more names, not this draft, but next draft, he's going to be one of those top 3 to 5 quarterbacks taken. But the thing is, if you look at his stats, he's not really a pop-off-the-page, 350 yards a game type guy. And something I wanted to bring up, an interesting fact that I saw earlier today, that Arizona State last year was 3-5 against the spread. And for those at home who don't know what that means, against the spread is if ASU is playing Kent State at the beginning of the year, Arizona State's the favorite in that game, so they would probably be given, be favored to win by 2 touchdowns. And if they're favored to win by 14 points, at the end of the game, you subtract 14 from their score. And if they hit that, let's say they win by 15, they win against the spread. If they're under 14, let's say they lose the game, they lose against the spread. And ASU was 3-5 against the spread. And I think although we were above 500 football team last year, it shows to kind of the type of coach Herm Edwards is he's never really going for the throat. I'm up 10 points in the third quarter on the road, and I'm going to run the ball 3 times. Hopefully I get a first down, so if I do, I'm going to run the ball 3 more times. And he's going to burn that clock. We've seen that against, the Michigan States. We've beat them back-to-back years off clock management. We've seen that so many times, and we've seen it hurt us a few times too, but it's kind of the trust the Herm process, and I think that's why Jaden Daniels' numbers won't necessarily pop off the page, but I think that's why he's going to get recognized as being a top 15 draft pick. And so we looked it up. The top draft pick from ASU ever was Terrell Suggs at number 10. Where do you think Jaden Daniels, do you think at the end of his career he could be above number 10, or do you think, his ceiling is around that 15 to 20 limit?
I think, honestly, his ceiling is like the top 20 limit. I mean, until he really does something game-changing, league-changing in the Pac-12, like I would say for starters, throw 3,500 yards, 27 touchdowns, and go first in the Pac-12. I mean, that's something that's, progress that we can see over the course of 2 or 3 years. That's something that we can better judge draft pick off of.
Yeah, and the thing that was kind of worrisome about Jaden Daniels was that at the beginning of the year, he was making a lot of dump downs, but wasn't turning the ball over. And, it was his first few games ever as a quarterback, and he had to grow. But at the end of the year, he kind of started building it, putting it together, and you really had that hope for this season, which, obviously isn't happening. But then came around Florida State. This Florida State team was banged up. Their coach was getting fired. It was a whole lot of things that, they didn't really want to beat in that game. I want to say they turned the ball over to us 6 times. And I think our offense, I can't remember how many points we scored, but it was somewhere around the 13 to 21 point range. And Jaden Daniels and the offense just looked like they couldn't do anything out there. And it was the defense scoring points, putting the offense in field goal position, stuff like that. And so that's why this season was really interesting to see, Jaden Daniels wasn't just a great player on the team helping ASU, but with Benjamin and, N'Keal Harry, Brandon Ayuk, all these great players gone, was it time for Jaden Daniels to become the man? The reason that ASU is winning these football games. He's throwing for 350, maybe averaging 75 yards running, just sprinkling in something different every game. That's what he did to win games, but it was also a mixture of, great plays by, Benjamin or a timely turnover. So I think it's going to be
plays too.
I think if anything, it's going to hurt his draft stock missing a year because he definitely needed to gain weight, and I think that's something he could have shown this year. A big first year to second year jump. But it will be interesting to see. His name has been thrown out for the transfer portal. He could potentially play again this season, which would help his stock. But we've seen the trust in Herm and the players they're putting around him. So I think he believes that this is a great opportunity for him.
My hot take for this section of the episode 3 is that Jaden Daniels will set the record for being the highest drafted quarterback out of Arizona State.
Yeah, it's not a bad. You have this at what is the highest before?
It was Mark Malone, and he got drafted 28th overall in the first round by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's interesting. Yeah, I definitely think he's going to go higher than that.
Like 28, he has to.
He's going to be on a team. I think he's going to be. How much of a rush there is on quarterbacks every year. And I think he's going to be in that first tier of bad teams. There's always the Dolphins, the Browns, the Bills that always seem to be looking for a quarterback every 5 years, 3 years. And I think he's going to be in that first patch of quarterbacks that goes. And then there's going to be that second patch, that's usually at the end of the first round. But I really see him going top, 10 to 15, really. I really do because of the weapons he's going to have around him in the future at ASU. But we did mention the transfer portal. We saw a big name today out of U of A, Colin Schooler, transfer from University of Arizona, Arizona, transferred to Texas Tech. And hey, man, I don't blame him all the players transferring because their team is so bad they had to rebrand their name just so they couldn't stay along with U of A. But that really is a big loss for the Wildcats. We now see 3 of their top 4 tacklers from last year in Colin Schooler, Tony Fields, and Scotty Young Jr. Transfer. 3 of their 4 top tacklers. So, what does this mean for ASU? Do you think you think we could see some players follow in their footsteps?
I Personally, I think there's a different culture established at Arizona State with, the uniformity from Ray Anderson and Herm Edwards compared to Kevin Sumlin and their commissioner over there. I mean, we're just a different program right now. We weren't at the high that they were at and then fell to the low that they went after after Tate kind of just came crashing back down to earth after that insane season. But I mean, for the spring season that is scheduled right now, we play the Arizona first game, and that would be a wild first territorial cup start off the season for the Sun Devils. And I mean, I'm pretty sure we'd come away with a victory there, but what a rush to start the season and just motivate our guys. I think it would be, it's purely beneficial for the Sun Devils.
So I think that schedule you're talking about might have been the one that was supposed to be for the fall schedule if there were to be a season, the Pac-12 only. I don't think they've released a spring schedule as of yet, but I think the reason they did that was because the Pac-12 was like, hey, this is our Pac-12 only schedule. And they looked at it and said, let's put a lot of these rivalries first because odds are we're not going to finish the season. So, give those fans these games like the Arizona State, the Oregon State, the USC, UCLA, some of those games that have the history, the Stanford Cows, and the ones that the fans really want to see. So, you don't want to see the ASU Colorado games in week one, and then if the season does get shut down, you lose ASU Oregon, ASU USC, and ASU U of A. Those are the games you really want to see. So I think they try to put scheduling wise as many as in there possible. But go back to the culture that you talked about. Let's compare Kevin Sumlin and Herm Edwards side by side. These guys were hired at the same time, and Kevin Sumlin was kind of thought of as a home run coach. Someone that was going to come in, had so much success recruiting at Texas A&M, pardon me. Had Johnny Manziel, led them to national prowess. And he comes into Tucson, he has DeMarco Murray as one of his running backs coach. He kind of just has a lot of hype around the train. And then Herm Edwards was, Ray Anderson, our athletic director, hadn't interviewed anyone else. It was kind of a questionable hire, but now it looks like Herm Edwards is the fantastic coach, and you kind of scratching your head after all these players are transferring, like, where are these wins going to come from U of A? So give me your ranking. Rank where you think Kevin Sumlin is as a coach right now versus the Herm Edwards hire. What would you give both hires as right now?
Well, if I had to grade them, I don't know how to rank them.
Grade them. Sorry,
I'll grade them. I'll give the Herm hire an 8 out of 10, and the Sumlin hire, let's go 6 out of 10.
It's generous too.
If you think about it, they're pretty similar. Like, just thinking about what you said, like bringing DeMarco Murray in, that reminded me. Herm Edwards brought in Marvin Lewis, who coached in the NFL. Did he coach alongside Herm?
I do not believe so. He might have been a coach for Herm, but I don't know if he ever coached with Herm. And at ASU. He's not really a coach. He's more of an advisor for the program. But yeah.
But think about Arizona and ASU both bringing in new coaches, both bringing in supervisors. Yeah. Well, DeMarco Murray, running back coach, a little different, but same kind of trying to instill the same culture. But man, what Kevin Sumlin did at Arizona did. I feel like what's the quarterback's name again?
Grant Gano.
No. The
Khalil Tate?
Yeah, Khalil Tate. I think he was just, running the show kind of type deal. And Sumlin kind of charged in there and was like, yo, I'm going to do this my way, the Texas A&M way. I got Johnny Money Manziel way. But look, that did not work at all. Herm came in after Manny left. We got Jaden. I feel like Herm did a bunch of that recruiting by himself too, which kind of just made it a little more personal maybe. What do you think?
I think it really kind of shows to what type of programs the teams were looking to build. DeMarco Murray had some off the field issues with with different teams in the NFL, but you kind of bring a player like that in for the recognition, the name recognition, the players, young kids recognize that name from playing fantasy football and stuff like that. But ASU brought in pros, people that had years of experience, and I think that shows players don't want to play. Players don't want to play for just a big name DeMarco Murray. Who cares about that? Players want to make it to the NFL. And when you put the people there that want to, that want you to play in the NFL, that know how to get you there, that have been there themselves, I think that shows that just kind of the programs where U of A kind of swung and missed. I mean, we really don't know where these wins are going to come from U of A. They're really depleted on defense, and to be honest, the defense that wasn't very good last year. I mean,
their defense averaged 35. They gave up 35 points a game on average last year. And they just lost, we just talked about it earlier, Schooler and Colin Schooler and Troy Fields. The defense that Arizona was running was a 4-3, and that's a 2 inside linebacker defense. Both those guys have been playing that same position since 2017.
Yeah.
Think about, those years, all those all those practices, all that communication, those guys, that chemistry they have working together at that spot, it's just gone now.
Yeah. No, I just want to read you. I was pulling it up while you're talking the stats for the tackle wise. Colin Schooler was first on the team with 98. Tony Fields was 92nd with 94, and then Scotty Young was fourth with 66 tackles last year. So you're losing, like I said earlier in the show, 3 of your top 4 tacklers, and you said, 35 points per game. I don't know really how you can recover.
Yeah, right.
It's a defense that was way below average already, and losing 3 of their 4 best players. And I don't know, Sumlin. It's really going to be interesting to see how much longer he stays on as coach, because there's a lot of hype around Grant Gunnell, but this is still not the end of the transfers. I know ASU still could have a few as well. We saw a fifth year senior enter the transfer portal for ASU, but realistically he was never going to play because of Jaden Daniels.
Right.
But if ASU were to get a few transfers, I think it would be really interesting to see what their explanation was. We talked about some USC players transferring just because they're most likely going to go pro next year, but you really just got to look at it, and it would be really interesting to see why, because they've been really hammering home that we trust Herm, the players have, and then Herm's been hammering home we really trust the players and we give back our attention to the players. So, I mean, Herm really has it figured out with the kids, and getting in touch with them, but also giving them their distance. And hopefully we don't see any more transfers, because I think even though if we have a few losses next year, I think the following year could be really promising for the Sun Devil football team, and like we said, building that Jaden Daniels draft stock up.
Yeah, and just back to Arizona, I mean, Kevin Sumlin is for sure on the hot seat right now. I mean, I think he's on a short leash, like we both said. It's going to be sketchy to see what happens, but he's not in. Khalil Tate's not there anymore. It's Grant Gunnell.
Yeah.
Think about this. Whenever the season starts, he's going to have all this time to implement his program, his way, to fresh players. So maybe it will be a little bit different. I mean, it's not looking good because of just
Absolutely
4 transfers, and I mean, there could be more. I mean, especially if the Big Ten ends up playing. I mean, that's the thing. Like, what if the Big Ten, next week announces that they're going to start playing football in November, and
it's very possible. I mean,
Chad Johnson Jr. leaves, and then someone else leaves, and you know what I mean? Because the Pac-12, looks like they've already made their decision, and they're not going to play. So these players are making their own decisions.
I think it's different for the kids that are coming in, because they haven't even had that taste of ASU football yet, where they would love to be here. But I think that the real question is for these people that are either juniors or seniors and are going to go pro. Do you want to wait that extra year, risk maybe injury in this year, and then go pro, or do you want to transfer, play your last year, and then just take your money when you can get it? And you can't really blame anyone either way. Whatever they decide, it makes sense. If you want to stick to your school, if you want to go make money immediately, I mean, it's really hard to say no when there's a few $1 million getting put in front of your face. So, but we talked about Arizona and how this potential schedule would be it would be a fun schedule with Arizona first, USC kind of tucked in at the back where it could be, a winner-take-all game for Pac-12 South. So we wanted to go up to the potential of what ASU could go. So first off, there would have been a 10-game schedule. What record do you think ASU would have gone?
So I think ASU would have finished 7-3, looking at the proposed all Pac-12 schedule.
So we'll go through game by game, and I personally think 8-2 would have been our record. We'll go through and explain each one why. But wanted to point out that it was interesting. ASU doesn't get a lot of national love all the time, but there was an article from 24/7 Sports that had ASU finishing first, USC second, and Utah third, which it's pretty nice to finally get that love from the national. I know they're not the most reliable, they're not the be all end all, but just seeing an article about the culture at ASU for once instead of Arizona sports being an absolute dumpster fire is pretty refreshing to see. So we're gonna go through game by game. Game 1, Arizona. Give me a score. Give me record at the time for ASU.
I say we finish the game 1-0. I mean, I say 1-0, and then we're gonna win by 20 points.
Yeah, I had that one as a 49-17 game. I don't think that game would have ever been close. Even if it's at U of A, Arizona, apologies. There's no fans there. It's not going to make a difference. Arizona gets washed aside. So next we have Stanford. That would have been a home game. ASU doesn't play Stanford well a whole lot. What do you have for this one?
I think we would have beat Stanford as well. I mean, by at least 2 touchdowns.
I think this one's interesting. So you have Arizona State going 2-0. I think ASU would have pulled this one out pretty narrowly, but I had a 23-20 game. ASU moves on to 2-0. I think the defense is going to would have taken another step up along with this offense. I think this offense would have been a lot to handle where even if you do play a solid defensive game, you're not going to really hold them down all game. Third game of the season would have been at Oregon. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this would be a change of scenery for the Devils. I mean, I just feel like that Mario Cristobal defense would, after 4 quarters of football, would clamp down on Jaden Daniels and they would just suffocate us. They'd make adjustments in the late in the game. I feel like it'd be close. I feel like that Jaden, Herm's game plan could keep us in it. But at the end of the day, the Ducks, they're gonna have that salty taste of that big L they took in Tempe last year, and they're gonna want to avenge that. And playing in Autzen is gonna be tough.
So this might be a little bit of a hot take here, but I have ASU winning this game. I had it being an absolute shootout. So listen, let me explain why. I had a 49-42 game ASU winning. I think the ASU does this every single year. They win a few games, high-profile games in the beginning, and they get the huge national hype. We've seen it with Michigan State 2 years in a row. We've seen it with other big names, and I think this is when people would say, wow, Jaden Daniels had a great first year. He's on the rise second year, 2 big wins over Oregon and Stanford. I think that would have been a primetime Saturday night game. I think ASU wins that, and then they're usually in for a huge letdown game. So I have ASU at 3-0, Josh at 2-1. We go to our next game, ASU versus UCLA. What do you think?
Yeah, pretty sure we play away at that one.
No, that one's home.
Okay, White's home.
Would have been.
Yeah, I think we can beat UCLA at home. I think they'll put up a lot harder fight than some people think. I mean, UCLA, I think UCLA is a little better than Cal, and that'll be a tough game too. But what do you think?
So I have ASU winning this one, but very narrowly. ASU always seems to struggle with quarterbacks that can run. DTR is a very athletic quarterback. We saw a really badly struggling UCLA team torch ASU. It wasn't even close in the Rose Bowl last year. I have this game as 42-38. Pretty close game, but again, ASU always seems to struggle with those scrambling quarterbacks. So I have ASU moving to 4-1 or 4-0. You have 3-1. Moving on to the 5th game, Colorado. At Colorado, ASU always seems to struggle with Colorado. What do you think here?
Yeah, I was about to say. I mean, usually, like last year and probably the year before, this is the game that ASU loses, coming off a big win. Say it'd be scheduled after the Oregon game. This is a game where we walk in there with our heads high, and we just ignore the fact that Colorado can play. But I think this year it's different, and we win.
So I have this as a win as well because they lost, the Devil Eater in Laviska Shenault, and he always seemed to put up, 120 yards for at least 2 touchdowns against us. And, they lost, I forgot maybe Steven, his first name, but Montez, who seems to have been at Colorado for about 7 years now, but he's finally gone. ASU, I think, wins this game. I don't think Colorado is going to be all that good this year. I think they can be competitive, but I don't think they're going to go 500, probably not going to make a bowl game this year. But so again, I have ASU winning that one pretty handily, probably by 17, 24 points. But so I actually have them at 5-0. This is where I had ASU really high up. I think if you can get that big first 3 wins, you got the Territorial Cup win, you get that momentum going into Stanford. Get Stanford, and then you have that big primetime game against Oregon. Your schedule gets a lot easier after that. You got UCLA and Colorado, setting yourself up for a potential 5-0 ranking and, pretty high national ranking, and then a big game against Utah. ASU, Utah's kind of had their number the past few years, but Game 6, what do you think?
Yeah, this is going to be tough. It'll be right in the heat of the Pac-12 South race, but just purely basing my evidence off of how ASU played against Utah last year, I do not see ASU winning this game. I see them going to 4-2 on the season.
So we have 2 questions. Jason Marks said, what are your trap games? Colorado, maybe. Jason, to be honest, I know you know a lot more about Colorado than we do, but we've seen big games from, Steven Montez, from Laviska Shenault, and, others against us. And with those gone, I think ASU was really going to, hopefully, in my mind, take that next step of hopefully not losing those, smaller games, but not smaller, but, games they should win. The trap game, though, I really thought would be Cal. We're going to get to that later in, but I think Cal is going to be a really solid team. They showed flashes last year until their quarterback got hurt, but we're going to go through this a little bit quicker just for time. Someone said, you dorks know that spring football isn't happening. Yes, we do know, us dorks do know spring football isn't happening. We're just doing a hypothetical of, what we thought ASU would have been, just to kind of get our minds racing and thinking about the team a little bit. So going back to it, I think ASU actually loses to Utah as well. Or we're on Utah, correct? Yeah, loses to Utah. Utah's always seemed to have our number. Even though they lost Zach Moss and they lost their quarterback as well, it's never seemed to be the offense that's beaten us. Last year, their defense just smothered us. It seemed to be they were in the backfield before the ball even got to Jaden Daniels' hands in shotgun. Every play. I mean, I don't think ASU's over that Utah hump yet. So I think they lose their national ranking here. I believe so they would be 5-1 here at this point, and you have them at 4-2. So moving on to Washington State. Washington State's actually played ASU tough, but we saw Jaden Daniels kind of coming out party last year against Washington State. What do you think about that game?
Yeah, I think he has a little deja vu. I think they win there.
I think they do win. I think they do win pretty easily there as well. So I have them moving to 6-1. And then the biggest game of the season would have been at USC, Keaton versus Jaden. Probably would have been the Pac-12 game of the year. But what do you think here?
I think Keaton takes the cake here. Shows Jaden how it's done.
I think USC probably is the better team this year as well. I really think this is a close game. I think this is a shootout. We saw a great game in Tempe last year, but I think USC takes this. And it depends how USC does, but I think this would give them the head-to-head tiebreaker. I think USC would actually finish 8-2 as well and win the Pac-12 South. So, like I said, trap game Cal. I think ASU wins, but Cal played a really good game at Cal against ASU last year. I think that's definitely a trap game to look out for if you're ASU. And then Oregon State, I think that's another win. What do you think about those last two?
Yeah, I think we come out of both those. Scary win in Cal, but easy win in Oregon State.
So 8-2 from me, 7-3 from Josh. We're really hoping we can maybe get some Thanksgiving football, but we're gonna have to wait and see. But that is all we have for this week. We want to thank you for watching us here on Devil Dash. It's a pleasure as always. Make sure to follow us on all socials at Dash Sports TV, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook. YouTube, MySpace, LinkedIn, whatever. We're on there. We're on subscribe to us. Our website is dashsports.tv. If you're interested in any other Pac-12 content, make sure to go check our colleagues out. For Josh, I'm Wills, and we will see you next week. Thanks for coming.